Hello everyone, it's Britney and welcome back to Britney Unplugged. And as you can tell by the title of this video, we're going to be talking about being in the pits, the signs of being in the pits, how to overcome being in the pits, and the things that may trigger you to be in the pits. Now, one may ask themselves, what is to be in the pits? Being in the pits is a fancy term for being at the lowest point in your life. It's like everything has come to a standstill and you feel so alone, you feel confused, and you don't feel like you are yourself. You let your negative emotions take control over you and you act on impulse, meaning that you just act in the heat of the moment, and that's if you're a confrontational person, and you act in a way that is not you, in a way that is damaging to you and damaging to others. That is what's called being in the pits. Now, when you're in the pits, it's very dangerous because your negative emotions, yes, they run you, but then as a result, it can lead you to having very dangerous thoughts, which can lead you to make very poor decisions, and it really affects and it taints the way you view things. It really taints your outlook on life and the general perspective on how you used to see things as well. You end up seeing things that you found positive in a very negative light, and it's almost as if you reach a point so low in your life that you feel like there's no positive light for you. And this is something that is really overlooked, especially as teenagers. I feel like as teenagers, we are told that, we're not supposed to have issues. We're told to just live in the moment. We're told to have fun, to be fearless, to not be afraid of anything, that, problems don't exist for us because we're too young. But ultimately, you're never too young to have a particular issue. You're never too young to feel like you are depressed. You're never too young to have a panic attack. There's no written rule saying that you have to be a certain age to feel that way, because ultimately we are human beings and we go through these things as well. And I feel like a lot of the times we struggle to talk about these things because we feel like the people who we can go to with these certain issues will invalidate us and make us look like we're crazy because we're young and we have depression, because we're young and we have anxiety, we're young and our grades are dropping because of how our mental state is. Do not discredit your issues, because it doesn't matter what age you are. If you're going through something, you're going through something, and that's just how it is. Now, being in the pits can be triggered by a number of things. For example, bullying. Now, bullying is the act of making someone else feel bad for themselves. It happens at school, it can happen amongst your friend group, it can happen in the workplace if you have a job. It's something that literally exists all around us. It's a sad thing that it does exist, but at some point in our lives, we have been subject to bullying. And no, it's not fair, but then these are things that we face and it can really taint your self-esteem. Now, there was a study that was carried out and 20.2% people, teenagers, reported that they were bullied. So they made the active decision to report that they were being bullied. Now, it's crazy because out of that 20.2% that reported the bullying, 41% of them said that the bullying was repeated and they saw the bullying continue in the future. 13% were subject to rumors. Another 13% were called names and they were insulted and they were mocked. 5% of them were subject to physical bullying. Now, all of these statistics are a lot, but one of the statistics that really stood out for me was that out of the 41% that reported repeated bullying, 27% said that it really ruined their self-esteem. That is more than half of the percentage that reported that the bullying was repeated. Now, relating back to my point, bullying can have a huge effect on the way you see yourself, your mental state, the way you react to other people. It can really affect your friendships, your relationships, your schoolwork, your general outlook on life, your perspective on things. It really taints the way you view things, because bullying, the point of bullying is to make you feel bad. It's supposed to make you feel inferior. There's supposed to be an imbalance of power. So the more you succumb to the imbalance of power, you end up feeling like you have no power at all. And as a result, it really ruins your self-esteem. And as a result, you can end up being in the pits, and it leads to very dangerous thoughts. In a number of cases, it leads to suicide, which is very sad. A number of people never deal with the bullying. They never go for therapy, for example. They never stand up to their bullies. So as a result, they end up living with a very low self-esteem, which can cause a huge impact on them when they get older. Now, the second thing that can trigger being in the pits is when you lose a loved one. And this has a very damaging psychological impact on you, because a lot of the times with loss, you're not prepared to lose the person. Even if you've been prepared for a while, when they're finally gone, especially if they held such a very, very special place in your heart, it's hard to let go. And letting go is hard. That is one of the reasons why people fall into the pits, because it's letting go of the memories, which gives them so much grief and so much pain, because they're not ready to let go of that person yet, because the memories and experiences that they had with that person are the only things that they have left of that person. Now, letting go is very difficult, especially in a circumstance where the death was sudden. Let's say it's a car accident, for example. It's not something that was predicted in the future, whereas a long-term illness such as cancer was predicted, like in the future. You never knew what the future held if it's like a long-term illness. But when it comes to a car accident, for example, it's very sudden. It's so unpredicted, unexpected. So as a result, when you lose them in the blink of an eye, then it's harder to let go of the memories, because you could be like, oh, I was just with this person yesterday and they were fine. So it's hard enough letting go. When you're given such a short time frame, it's very difficult to let go as well. Now, the third thing that can cause someone to be in the pits is something that all teenagers can relate to. Everyone can relate to this. Stress from school. I think the stress that school can give people is very disregarded, and it's something that can really cause an impact, like a very damaging impact on the pupil. Because in school, there's so much pressure to do well. There's so much pressure to do better than the other person. There's so much pressure to outdo yourself. There's so much pressure to prove a teacher wrong, to prove your class wrong, to prove a sports coach wrong. There is so much pressure with school in general. There's so much pressure with the education system in general to do well, to be the best. Like if you can't add up, if you can't get this particular grade, then it means you can't get into this course. It's so systematic that way that it causes a damaging psychological impact when you don't meet the expectation that you are required to meet. And that is something that can really contribute to when someone goes into the pits, because they end up feeling like they're not good enough. They're not smart enough. They're not intelligent enough to go to this particular university because they didn't get this particular grade, when grades are not a definition of who you are. It's really tainted some of my views on particular things because of the amount of stress that it has given me. But then, of course, I always manage to overcome it. I always tell myself, you know what, I can do it. I set my mind to my work and I do what I have to do. But then it's hard. School is hard. The pressure from school is hard, and it can be unbearable. So it's okay to not always have it under control. It's okay to just sit down and let yourself just have a breakdown. And once you have a breakdown, you move on from it. It's okay that after that maths test or that chemistry test, if it was super, super hard, you just go outside and you sit down and then you just say, I just need to cry. That is okay. And crying helps as well, so don't invalidate your emotions as well. School is hard, and that can really contribute to someone being in the pits. Now, the fourth thing that can contribute to you being in the pits, or it's one of the issues, one of the biggest issues that a number of people face, which it's not very talked about, it's not really touched on, is trauma from your upbringing. Whether it's a narcissistic parent, a narcissistic sibling, or it's that one aunt that always feels the need to pinpoint at your insecurities, or it's always that one uncle that feels the need to compare you to their child and make their child seem holier than thou, there is always something that someone else is going through. Make sure that, like if you're at school, for example, and someone is behaving in a particular way, just make sure you're nice to everyone, because you don't know what somebody else is going through. Now, you need to be careful that you do not let the trauma overtake you. Don't let it become you. It has to be something that you resolve, because you don't want to carry that trauma with you to wherever you go when you become a parent and so on. Now, the trauma can come from a number of things. Let's say you don't do very well in a test, and then there are particularly not nice words that are thrown at you. And then let's say you're insecure about your legs, for example. Let's say you're insecure about your thigh gap or your stretch marks, for example. And then your relative, maybe it's a cousin, an aunt, an uncle, says something to you and points it directly at the insecurity that you have, because they know for a fact that you have that insecurity. That is something that can really hurt you and damage you. And it's something that can ruin your self-esteem as well, because ultimately you are your own person, you are unique. So when another person comes and they try to tell you what you can be and what you can't be, what you should have and what you can't have, and you don't really have a deeper understanding of what you want, then it really taints your state, your psychological state, and you begin to believe all of these words that are thrown at you every single day because you're not content with yourself. As a result, you fall deeper and deeper into the pits. It's more damaging when you're oblivious to the abuse that's happening towards you, because you then realize that it will catch up to you when you get older, because you end up developing particular toxic traits that you did that you know wouldn't really be part of you, but because you haven't dealt with your trauma, you kind of carry that with you, like in the years to come. Now, those are the 6 triggers that may lead you to be in the pits. Now, the signs that you are in the pits is, number 1, insomnia. Not being able to sleep properly. Sleep is almost like it's a luxury to you, even though it's supposed to be a necessity. Number 2, excessive worrying, overthinking, always thinking, what if, oh no, oh this, oh my gosh, what if I do this, what if I do that, oh no, and you just worry about everything, which I am guilty of. Number 3, you snap at everyone or you distance yourself from everyone. It's either or you may adopt both traits. In the worst case scenarios, being in the pits can mean that you may suffer from a lot of panic or anxiety attacks. You may hyperventilate, you feel like you're losing control of your body, you feel like the air is closing in on you, you can't breathe. It's like everything around you is hot and it just doesn't feel good. And of course, having a low self-esteem as well, and thinking, always doubting your decisions, doubting every single move you make, always thinking, oh no, I'm not good enough, telling yourself that you're not good enough, literally believing that what's the point? Like, I'm not good at anything. But if you want to overcome the feeling of being in the pits and you really want to get rid of this feeling and literally just eliminate it as a whole, and you want to get back on your feet again, you want to feel good about yourself again, the first thing you need to remember is to never rush the process. Rome was not built in a day. Success is built up over time, because success which comes just like that is normally very temporary and it dies very quickly. One thing you need to understand is that healing cannot be rushed, because with healing, you're supposed to allow yourself to feel whatever you need to feel so that you process it, understand it, internalize it, absorb it, and then you deal with it. You need to heal. Whether it's figuring out the things that you like, one thing you should always do is talk to someone that you trust about it. Talk to a school guidance counselor. Talk to a therapist about it. Let out your emotions. Deal with them. Confront them. There's nothing weak about that. In order for you to heal, you need to confront it and you need to accept it. So do not rush the process, or don't discredit it and say, oh, I'm fine, when you're not fine. You need to accept the fact that you're not okay and you're not in a very good place. And there's no reason why you can't be in a good place. There's no reason why you can't be the best version of yourself. There's no reason why you cannot be happy. So if you want to find your happiness, you need to accept the fact that you're not okay in the moment, so that you truly appreciate what true happiness is when you get yourself out of that dark place. Talk to someone about it. Figure out something that you're good at. Do some recreational activities, exercise, yoga, going for walks, and so on. But I highly, highly recommend that you talk to someone about it when you're ready. Of course, opening up about your feelings, opening up about your circumstances means that you need to be ready to do that. No one else is going to tell you that you should do it there and then. You need to be ready to talk to someone about it. It takes a lot of courage to really admit the fact that you are going through something, but it takes even more courage when you have to admit to somebody else that this is what you're going through. So before you get vulnerable with someone, or before you get vulnerable with yourself, you need to make sure that you need to make the active decision that you are ready for it. Don't rush into something that you're not ready to confront, or else you won't confront it fully. You may run away from your problem. Now, the second thing you need to do when you're in the pits, if you want to overcome it, you need to do the opposite of what your mind is telling you to do. The reason for this is that when you're in the pits, your mindset is negative. Your emotions are negative. Your perspective is negative. Everything is negative, and you just see the bad in everything. So your mind is telling you to do something negative. For example, when you are in the pits, your mind could tell you to self-deprecate, put yourself down, say you're ugly, you're worthless, you're never going to get anywhere. But if you do the exact opposite of what your mind is telling you to do, then you start proclaiming good things, saying, I'm beautiful, I am worth it, I'm intelligent, I'm smart. And you say every single positive adjective to you, and you really proclaim good things onto yourself. That is the exact opposite of what your mind is telling you to do, because you're canceling out what your negative mindset is telling you to do. Because the moment you do what your mind is telling you to do when you are not in a good mental state, then you end up adding oil to the fire and fueling that negative energy. So if you're not in a good place, if you're in a place of self-doubt, self-misery, and you have a low self-esteem, and your mind is telling you to self-deprecate and to do all of these awful things, and your mind is telling you to do something negative, really. If your mind is coinciding with how you're feeling, do the exact opposite of it in order to cancel out what your mind is telling you to do. Now, it's easier said than done, but if you have made the active decision to get out of this dark place, that is just something that you need to do. You have to be constructive with yourself. You need to be harsh on yourself and say, okay, look, at this point in time, I'm not okay, but I can't keep proclaiming all these bad things. It's a decision you need to make, and no one else is going to make it for you. Now, the third thing you can do in order to overcome being in the pits is you need to take time for yourself. It doesn't necessarily mean isolate yourself from everybody 24/7. It just means that just find a point during the day where you are alone, when no one is around you, and think productively and positively. Think about what you want for yourself so that your views and your decisions aren't clouded by other people's judgments. When you take time for yourself, you think clearly and you think in the headspace that you want to be in. But then, of course, while taking time for yourself, you're doing positive things in the moment, because it's one thing to be in the pits and taking time for yourself and self-deprecate. That's the worst combination possible, because you're not doing anything productive in order to get yourself out of that dark place. So when you have time for yourself, think positively. Think all of these positive things whilst you are thinking towards the future, in a positive future. Because one thing you need to remember is that your words have a lot of power. Don't underestimate the power that your words can have. So make sure that whatever you say to yourself, whatever decision you make, it's only going to better you, and it's only going to help you get better and help you get to the place that you want to be. But ultimately, you need to make the active decision. It all comes back to you. Other people can tell you to do it, but if you don't believe you can, then it's worthless. And the last thing you need to do when you're in the pits is to remember not to wallow, but allow. When you wallow in your misery, you accept the fact that you are in pain. But then when you wallow, it's kind of like you find comfort in your sorrow. You find comfort in your pain, that you end up forgetting what you're actually upset about. Of course, there's a root to the issue. Of course, you have a vague understanding. But then you become so upset and you're in so much pain to the point where once you find comfort in it, you forget the actual true source of where your pain started, where it all started, because you're just so used to feeling hurt, everything upsets you, that it becomes a build-up and a build-up and a build-up and a build-up of emotions. Whereas if you allow, you understand more where the source of the pain is coming from, because when you allow something, when you allow yourself to feel what you're feeling, you're also allowing yourself to accept the fact that you are feeling that way. And like I said, you are allowing yourself to be a little bit more harsh on yourself. Whereas when you wallow, you find comfort in your pain, you feel more sorry for yourself, and you don't actually accept the fact that you need to heal, and you don't allow yourself, you are allowing yourself to feel what you need to feel, but it's almost like you allowing yourself to be in pain becomes permanent, whereas with allowing yourself to feel what you need to feel, it's more temporary, because eventually you will heal from that pain. So make sure you don't wallow in your misery, but you allow the misery to occur. But of course, these are some serious things that we go through, especially as teenagers and everything. There's so much pressures we face on the daily, there's so much we go through, and there's so much that we experience that people don't understand, that people really discredit us for, that people really think we just make up as excuses for not wanting to do X, Y, Z. But we really go through these things. Never discredit it, because it's important. Talk to someone, heal, find something that you like to do. Find ways to fill up your time with positive things, as always, and always tell yourself that you are worth it. Tell yourself that you're going to make it to the end. Tell yourself that you are strong enough to make it to the finish line. So I hope this video helped you and it gave you more insight into this topic. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and hit the bell to be notified when I post new videos. Remember to be nice to everyone, because you never know what someone else is going through. Always, always, always just stay on the positive side of things. If you're going through this, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. That may sound very cliche, but there really is always light at the end of the tunnel. You just need to believe that the light is on your way. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. See you soon. God bless you all. Bye.